Good hello, welcome to Mootable Moments, where it's time to moot things. But what will I moot? I don't know. Maybe best start just with like a circle or something. A lot of drawings start with circles. Why not? Seems obvious to maybe turn it into Kirby. Don't give it feet. Give it a tank, tire, caterpillar, track treads. Yeah, that's the ticket. The obvious thing seems to be to give it a face. What else can I put onto a circle? What else is round? I know. I'll make it just a massive eyeball. A massive eyeball on tank treads. That will do. That's a rough. Should I rough out more animated movements to determine what will happen next? No. Let's just build it now. Do some cleanup. Do it all in one layer. No, not all in one layer. Give it many layers. One tire tank tread. That is very crude. We'll have to do. We're animating quickly. There is no time to go back and do it more clean. Just scribble that in. I'm gonna hop over into drawing view here. Draw over it again. If it's an oscillating, vibrating wheel, then it just requires a rough trace over. That will do. Doesn't even need to be that accurate. In fact, this embraces the fact that it's just roughly thrown on top of there. And the only actual difference needs to be doing in-betweens of the little treads going down the side. There we go. After 3, they are perfectly in-betweened, and that will loop just fine. Look at that. That will do. Oh boy. I'll quickly fill that with 2 different shades of grey and making sure that all the gaps are filled in. Turning on stroke mode, drawing in stroke so I can just fill in some of those gaps with no problem. Of course, I must make sure that they are at least consistent colours. Okay, 3 frames looping, putting all those to an exposure of 3 and marking the first one as a key so I should be able to see them when they loop. I'll copy and paste cycle for many cycle. That will just run for the whole animation. That I have no idea what it is going to be yet, but it will indeed loop. I intend now to make a duplicate of this. But what kind of duplicate? Should I copy and paste it? No, if I need to make a change, I need to have it be an apply peg transformation. So the same object can exist in 2 different places simultaneously. There we are. 2 treads on either side, and now the main face needs to be laid in between, which I'll just call I, and do some quick cleanup. Not so much cleanup, just tracing over it again, but in black. The green iris, white highlights, all this gone over the front. Bring the black ones through to the very front, and some pinkish eye veins around the edges. There we go. Lots of pressure sensitivity, and arrange the black outline to the front once more. I'll peg both the original tread and the eye, and I need to make it sort of like an engine type-ness. But first, have it drive across, just a straight tween left to right. That'll do, that's fine. Okay, another peg on top. This one will be a bit of a pulse. Put the pivot at the bottom with a scale and shift it down just a tiny bit. That's probably too much. There we go. And copy and paste that to a cycle of also many times. And oh boy, it's not nearly enough even then. It's got to be that many. There we go. Oscillating all the way across. Chugga, chugga, chugga. Okay, cool. Driving little eye tank. Is that enough? Can I call it there? No, this needs a little bit more. I mean, it's a tank. It needs like a weapon or something, right? Yeah. I'll add a new layer to the bottom. Black brush once again, and I'll draw a weapon in behind him, I think. A bit lasery, a bit sci-fi-y, with the same grey as the wheels and some white highlights around the edges. I'll peg that, put that into just the right spot so that it can pivot down in such a way that it looks like it's sort of reloading. Oh, hang on, it's not pegged to the main thing. There we go. Make a nice tight couple of keyframes so you can just sort of chunk like that down and up. Still too slow. Make it nice and snappy. There we go. With a really harsh ease. That's better. Now it needs to swing down to face its enemy. There we go. Ching. Ending up about there. Need a bit of overshoot. It swings all the way down. Oh, hang on. I need to lay that in front of the first tire so it doesn't slip behind everything when it loads down. Give that also a pretty extreme ease so it's very fast, snappy, and strong. Yeah, get out of my way. I'm an eye cannon. I'm laser focused. I think I should give him a laser, actually. Just driving along and reloading. It could do with more. It could do with a laser blast. Yeah, I'll give it a laser blast. I'll get a blue onto a fresh layer. Put it right in the front. And this is just going to be a frame by frame psycho, completely improvised, no real need to plan it sort of charge up, which means flickering shapes and flares. Now, this could be planned properly, and you can have it grow and pulse and charge up in very satisfying and deliberate ways, but there is no time for such a thing. Once it's positioned and pegged in properly, I'm going to hop into drawing view. Don't need to see anything else now. Just going to focus on this one shape as it grows and charges and gets ready to fire. So I'll draw a big one, then a small one, then one even bigger than that, one even bigger than that. It's all pretty random, actually. Bigger than smaller, then bigger than smaller. Not really giving myself any time to really think about it. This is probably going to be very wrong and probably full of many problems. But at this point, it doesn't really matter. I'm not using up any actual pages. There's no shame in just taking this for a spin. Okay, that flicker is... It's probably on the right track. It's not quite there. Let's see how it looks in twos. No, that's a little bit too brief. So it needs to be in ones. Maybe if it's doubled, I'll copy and paste and have it cycle through that twice. Okay, so it's had a bit of a randomness to start. Maybe now it's time for a little bit of structure. So I'll have it go sequentially from very, very big to very, very small, noticeably shrinking in as if it's condensing, compacting the power into a very tight space. I don't really practice this kind of thing enough. I need to do it more. I'll also make it staggered. Delete every second frame so it sort of strobes as it charges up. Yeah, that looks better. I mean, it could be seen as if it's just sputtering out and dying, but if a really big blast comes out the side, I'm sure it'll give the effect as if it's condensing a lot of energy into a small space, I hope. I could also take advantage of some pegs and tweens here. I'm going to have one, after that strobing thing, I'm going to have it hold on one image for a little while and then tween it, spinning and changing size with the right amount of ease. Well, actually, on second thought, that kind of looks like garbage. It's very soft, isn't it? Slowing into having it be small and then growing into a slow, large shape. Just like all the strength sort of just gets lost. It just looks like a weak circle now. How do we keep that energy growing? Well, for now, I'll move on to drawing some flares. Another layer above. Some strokes sort of spinning, sparkling, lens flaring around, right? So, a bit of a ring around there. So it tends to give this satisfying little sparkle, right? Thicker, energetic ones. Oh, these are so crudely drawn. It'll do. It gets the effect across. Lightning is always great fun to do. Squiggles with lots of pressure sensitivity. They can be done really well if you take some time to make some very deliberate shapes, but I don't have the time to make some very deliberate shapes. Squiggles will have to do. Okay, got 4 frames of that. That should be enough if I copy and paste those a few times, so it will loop the same drawings. Of course, any modifications made to those will update on all of them. If I keyframe each set and then sort of spin and manipulate each one, then it should just create enough variety that it doesn't become noticeably repetitive, despite the fact that this is repeating 4 times in a very short amount of space. There we go. So that's starting to get a quite effective chargy strobe going. I'm going to mess with the exposure of some of them as well. That's going to give it a little bit more variety also. Stagger exposure as well, having some cut out for individual frames, so it just, continues to strobe. Some will sort of hold and pulse. This is a lot of fun. Like, I'll be able to get a lot of mileage out of each drawing, and by manipulating exposure and pegs can have these images do all sorts of different things. If I only have one frame of lightning though, I'm gonna need a more deliberate in-between to help finish the charge. That will do. Yeah, okay. That seems like it's ready for a large blast. So next, I guess will just be the energy beam itself. I'll hop back to the main layer and just do a huge shape. Doesn't really matter. This thing is gonna be pretty damn exaggerated. And with the peg on that, every other frame, change the scaling super dramatically. There we go. I'll copy and paste a cycle, probably about 20 cycles. Then I just don't really have to worry about it. Okay. I think that might do. I'll put a parent peg on all of that so I can pick up and move the whole thing. Alright, so this whole animation is now just a unit I can place around the scene. But I still don't feel quite done. A background, some compositing, some custom lighting and stuff perhaps. I can't just have this shape be, like this blast just be a shape. First I'll dissipate the laser, have it tween down to nothing on a fresh peg so that can happen alongside the pulse. It will continue to pulse while shrinking and then turning down to nothing, and then all I gotta do is just turn off the exposure when it gets thin enough. I can't just have this shape be a shape. It's gotta be able to glow and actually look like a laser. Also, these flares coming off the edge, I drew it when it was big, didn't I? So now those flares end before the edge of the scene. Gotta go and do a little bit of manual labor, make sure that those go off the edge completely, and there's lots of wiggle room, so if I shrink this thing further, it will continue to be fine. I think I will do a background, something really simple. Earthy colors, speckling it in. Pretty crude, but will look better than just solid white. Okay, compositing time. I'm gonna get all of the laser nodes, I'll put those into a composite, so that with those strings combined, I've got this sort of play area in the middle between these two composites. I'll put some glows and things there, and it will apply to both the lightning shapes, it will apply to the beam shapes. Let's just see what we can happen. I'll use the source color at first, just to see how that looks with that blue. Let's bloom it out to, 50-ish. The default color doesn't actually look that good. Let's try a deeper blue. There we go. That's a bit more glowy. If it's combined with its original shape underneath, yeah, that's looking a bit better. With an intensity of 2. Let's get a second glow. So there's 3 instances of this now. This one will have usually a bit more of an in-between level of glow is what I like to do. And a bit of a lighter color. So it creates a bit more of a softer wash between the solid part of the beam and just the radiant light of it. The tricky part with these sorts of glows is having it be effective on small shapes as well as big ones. Because the really big beam at the end, you know, that glow would look great if it's just going all the way out to the edge of the screen. But a glow that's soft on a really small shape like the arcs of lightning, it just gets so washed out you can't see anything at all. So really tight glows work well for that instance. So rather than making something specific for both shapes, if I just do a sort of happy middle ground, it should be good enough for just an all-purpose glow. Whatever shapes I throw at that layer, whatever it applies automatically, should do just fine. I want to glow the eye as well, just because why not? I'll put a color selector in there and choose the greens from the iris and give those a little bit of a source color glow, so just, you know, a little bit more interesting dimension to the color than it just being more flat shapes. 5 and 3, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Doesn't necessarily look lit up per se, but it's a little bit more eye-like. I'll give it a shadow as well, so it actually sits against that background rather than just looking like a dumb little backdrop. Shadows are nice and easy. There's a dedicated node for it. I'll put an applied peg transformation underneath, so it takes a second instance of that image and I can place it wherever I want, particularly with a quad map. Quad maps are just like pegs, but they have the 4 sort of transformation points in the corners. sort of shape and manipulate it like that. And as long as it's parented into the same point as the main character, then it should always just move along with it wherever I take it. And now, lastly, I want to have the whole scene and the character affected by the sheer brightness of this laser beam. So if I take a tone, put the character through that, it'll darken the whole thing, and then I'll mask it out by itself, shift it a bit to the side. So second instance of the same character into the matte of the tone, peg displaced a little bit to the right, and then inverted. Yeah, there we go. So see how that's now got a bit of a shadow on the left-hand side. Make it a bit denser and color it appropriately. Could do with a blur too. All right. Now I'm going to probably do the opposite with a highlight so that the right-hand side is lit up by the beam. I want the background itself to light up with the beam as well. So for that, I reckon probably a color card with a blending mode might be the way to go. So I'll get a nice dark blue color card and set that to, let's just flicker through them. Yeah, there we go, just an add. Add will do, help things all work. I'll put a transparency at the bottom. I think we'll animate that transparency so it will fade in and fade out according to the intensity of the beam. That transparency under the main composite of all these effects, so I have a central location to control them all from. A color card that's laid in front of everything is just going to turn everything completely blue all the time, pretty much. So I'm going to use a visibility node there, so it will only appear when rendering. It doesn't distract me while I'm working. I know it works, so I don't need to be seeing it all the time. Just working with the numbers should be good enough. I want to give this transparency a strobe as well. So oscillating between 0 and 10, so it's fully opaque, a tiny bit not. And then as the beam is starting to go away, rather than oscillating, I'll have it gradually fade back out to 100. Lastly, there needs to be a full-on strobe when that blast completely takes off. Just 3 frames, nice little trick. Full screen of white, full screen of black, full screen of white again. But it looks a little bit better when the character can be seen a little bit through that strobe sometimes. So I'm going to set this up by getting a full white color card and then send that through an image switch. So I'm going to have 3 different instances here. 1 white color card, 1 black color card, and then the third one being the white color card again, but masked out with the silhouette of the character. The raw character masked out by that first peg displacement from the tone. Invert it back so it's just the front half of the character, and that placed on top of the black card. So that should make for a good silhouette. So if I matte that and just change it to being white, then it'll look like that. And the beam and lightning on top. That looks pretty cool actually. I've got 2 different instances, they're like 2 different frames, and I'll create the third one by getting that sort of strobe effect, put a negate through it, and that just inverts the colors. Easy. So now there's 3 composites, each one representing different states that look like this, respectively. So now I'll send those 3 through an image switch, and this is like an animatable composite. If I change the number, it will change what port gets revealed at any given time. So pretty much always it's going to be showing port 0, the main scene. And then during the strobe, I'll quickly have the image switch flick to 1, 2, 3, back to 0 again. It makes things a lot easier sometimes, rather than animating something like setting up a whole thing and deliberately making it a reveal for only 1 frame. Especially when it's interacting with all these other layer elements, I can just have it exist permanently as its own version of the scene, and then only expose that version of the scene for however long or as little as I want. In this case, 1 frame. There he is, laser focused. A very enjoyable, mutable moment. Thank you very much to my patrons for supporting these videos. Working files for all Onionskin videos are available to them, so you can dig into the nooks and crannies of this file and understand even more thoroughly how it ticks. Yeah.